Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life, on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Hi there, Fred here, host of Undertow Realms, podcast of the weird and the wicked. Today we are continuing with my reading of Arthur Machen's The Green Book, picking up right where we left off last time. We had started right into the contents of the strange journal, the Green Book, and the extraordinary experiences of its narrator, who only started to make sense of her experience when she compared them to stories that were told to her by her nurse, which on their surface seemed like fanciful fairy tales, but on a deeper layer might contain important and even forbidden knowledge. This is The Green Book Part 2, wherein the nurse asks her charge if she would like to learn more of the forbidden knowledge, specifically with the formation of magical mud people and some rituals associated with that. Here we go, Part 2, Green Book. Nurse showed me how the images were made one day when we were out for a walk, and we passed by a place where there was a lot of wet clay. Nurse asked me if I'd like to know what those things were made of that they made on the hill, and I said yes. Then she asked me if I would promise never to tell a living soul a word about it, and if I did, I was to be thrown into the black pit with the dead people. And I said I wouldn't tell anybody, and she said the same thing again, and I promised. So she took my wooden spade and dug a big lump of clay and put it in my tin bucket, and told me to say if anyone met us that I was going to make pies when I got home. Then we went on a little way till we came to a little break growing right down into the road, and Nurse stopped and looked up the road and down it, and then peeped through the hedge into the field on the other side, and then she said, "Quick!" And we ran into the break and crept in and out among the bushes till we had gone a good long way from the road. Then we sat down under a bush, and I wanted so much to know what Nurse was going to make with the clay, but before she would begin, she made me promise again not to say a word about it. And she went again and peeped through the bushes on every side, though the lane was so small and deep that hardly anybody ever went there. So we sat down, and Nurse took the clay out of the bucket and began to knead it with her hands and do strange things with it and turn it about. And she hid it under a big dock leaf for a minute or two, and then she brought it out again. And then she stood up and sat down and walked round the clay in a very peculiar manner, and all the time she was softly singing a sort of rhyme, and her face got very red. Then she sat down again and took the clay in her hands and began to shape it into a doll, but not like the dolls I have at home. She made the strangest doll I'd ever seen, all out of wet clay, and hid it under a bush to get dry and hard. And all the time she was making it, she was singing these rhymes to herself, and her face got redder and redder. So we left the doll there, hidden away in the bushes where nobody would ever find it. And a few days later, we went the same walk, and when we came to that narrow, dark part of the lane where the break runs down to the bank, Nurse made me promise all over again. And she looked about, just as she had done before, and we crept into the bushes till we got to the green place where the little clay man was hidden. I remember it all so well, though I was only 8, and it is 8 years ago now as I'm writing it down, but the sky was a deep violet blue. And in the middle of the break where we were sitting, there's a great elder tree covered with blossoms, and on the other side, there's a clump of meadowsweet. And when I think of that day, the smell of the meadowsweet and elder blossom seems to fill the room, and if I shut my eyes, I can see the glaring blue sky, with little clouds, very white, floating across it, and Nurse, who went away long ago, sitting opposite me, and looking like the beautiful white lady in the wood. So we sat down, and Nurse took out the clay doll from the secret place where she had hidden it, and she said we must pay our respects, and she would show me what to do, and I must watch her all the time. So she did all sorts of strange things with the little clay man, and I noticed she was all streaming with perspiration, though we had walked so slowly, and then she told me to pay my respects, and I did everything she did because I liked her, and it was such an odd game. And she said that if one loved very much, the clay man was very good if one did certain things with it. And if one hated very much, it was just as good, only one had to do different things. And we played with it a long time and pretended all sorts of things. Nurse said her great-grandmother had told her all about these images, but what we did was no harm at all, only a game. But she told me a story about these images that frightened me very much, and that was what I remembered that night, when I was laying awake in my room in the pale, empty darkness, thinking of what I had seen in the secret wood. Nurse said there was once a young lady of the high gentry who lived in a great castle, and she was so beautiful that all the gentlemen wanted to marry her because she was the loveliest lady that anybody had ever seen, and she was kind to everybody, and everybody thought she was very good. But though she was polite to all the gentlemen who wished to marry her, she put them off and said she couldn't make up her mind, and she wasn't sure she wanted to marry anybody at all. And her father, who was a very great lord, was angry, though he was so fond of her, and he asked her why she wouldn't choose a bachelor out of all the handsome young men who came to the castle. But she only said she didn't love any of them very much, and she must wait, and if they pestered her, she said she would go and be a nun in a nunnery. So all the gentlemen said they would go away and wait for a year and a day, and when a year and a day were gone, they would come back and ask her to say which one she would marry. So the day was appointed, and they all went away, and the lady had promised that in a year and a day it would be her wedding day with one of them. But the truth was that she was the queen of the people who danced on the hill on summer nights, and on the proper nights she would lock the door of her room, and she and her maid would steal out of the castle by a secret passage that only they knew of, and go away up to the hill in the wild land. And she knew more of the secret things than anyone else, and more than anyone knew before or after, because she would not tell anybody the most secret secrets. She knew how to do all the awful things, how to destroy young men, how to put a curse on people, and other things that I could not understand. And her real name was the Lady Evelyn, but the dancing people called her Cassop, which meant someone very wise in the old language. And she was whiter than any of them and taller, and her eyes shone in the dark like burning rubies, and she could sing songs that none of the others could sing. And when she sang, they all fell down on their faces and worshipped her. And she could do what they called shibsho, which was a very wonderful enchantment. She would tell the great lord, her father, that she wanted to go into the woods to gather flowers, so he would let her go. And she and her maid went into the woods where nobody came, and the maid would keep watch. Then the lady would lie down under the trees and begin to sing a particular song, and she stretched out her arms, and from every part of the wood great serpents would come, hissing and gliding in and out among the trees, and shooting out their forked tongues they crawled up to the lady. And they all came to her, and twisted round her body and her arms and her neck, till she was covered with writhing serpents, and there was only her head to be seen. And she whispered to them, and she sang to them, and they writhed round and round, faster and faster, till she told them to go. And they all went away directly, back to their holes, and on the lady's breast there would be a most curious, beautiful stone, shaped something like an egg, and colored dark blue and yellow and red and green, marked like a serpent's scales. It was called a glam stone, and with it one could do all sorts of wonderful things. And Nurse said her great-grandmother had seen a glam stone with her own eyes, and it was for all the world shiny and scaly like a snake. And the lady could do a lot of other things as well, but she was quite fixed that she would not be married. And there were a great many gentlemen who wanted to marry her, but there were only 5 of them who were chief. And their names were Sir Simon, Sir John, Sir Oliver, Sir Richard, and Sir Roland. All the others believed she spoke the truth, and that she would choose one of them to be her man when a year and a day was done. It was only Sir Simon, who was very crafty, who thought she was deceiving them all, and he vowed he would watch and try if he could find out anything. And though he was very wise, he was very young, and he had a smooth, soft face like a girl's, and he pretended, as the rest did, that he would not come to the castle for a year and a day, and he said he was going away beyond the sea to foreign lands. But it really only went a very little way away, and he came back dressed as a servant girl, and so he got a place in the castle to wash the dishes. And he waited and watched, and he listened and said nothing, and he hid in dark places, and woke up at night and looked out, and he heard things, and he saw things that he thought were very strange. And he was so sly that he told the girl that waited on the lady that he really was a young man, and that he had dressed up as a girl because he loved her so very much and wanted to be in the same house with her. And the girl was so pleased that she told him many, many things, and he was more than ever certain that Lady Evelyn was deceiving him and the others. And he was so clever and told the servant so many lies that one night he managed to hide in Lady Evelyn's room behind the curtains. And he stayed quite still and never moved. And at last, the lady came. And she bent down under the bed and raised up a stone, and there was a hollow place underneath. And out of it she took a waxen image, just like the clay one that I and Nurse had made up in the break. And all the time her eyes were burning like rubies. And she took the little wax doll up in her arms and held it to her breast, and she whispered and she murmured, and she took it up again, and she laid it down again, and she held it high, and she held it low, and she laid it down again. And she said, "Happy is he that begat the bishop, that ordered the clerk, that married the man, that had the wife, that fashioned the hive, that harbored the bee, that gathered the wax, that my own true love was made of." And she brought out of the ambre a great golden bowl, and she brought out of the closet a great jar of wine, and she poured some of the wine into the bowl, and she laid her manikin very gently in the wine, and washed it in the wine all over. Then she went to a cupboard, and took a small round cake, and laid it on the image's mouth, and then she bore it softly and covered it up. And Sir Simon, who was watching all the time, though he was terribly frightened, saw the lady bend down and stretch out her arms and whisper and sing. And then Sir Simon saw behind her a handsome young man who kissed her on the lips. And they drank wine out of the golden bowl together, and they ate the cake together. But when the sun rose, there was only a little wax doll. The lady hid it again under the bed in the hollow place. So Sir Simon knew quite well what the lady was, and he waited and he watched, till the time she had said was nearly over, and in a week, the year, and a day would be done. And one night, when he was watching behind the curtains in her room, he saw her making more wax dolls. And she made 5 and hid them away. And the next night she took one out and held it up and filled the golden bowl with water and took the doll by the neck and held it under the water. Then she said, Sir Dickon, your day is done. You shall be drowned at the water won." And the next day news came to the castle that Sir Richard had been drowned at the ford. And at night she took another doll and tied a violet cord round its neck and hung it up on a nail. Then she said, "Sir Roland, your life has ended its span. High on a tree I see you hang." And the next day news came to the castle that Sir Roland had been hanged by robbers in the wood. And at night she took another doll and drove her bodkin right into its heart. Then she said, Sir Noel, so cease your life. Your heart is pierced with the knife." And the next day news came to the castle that Sir Oliver had fought in a tavern, and a stranger had stabbed him in the heart. And at night she took another doll and held it to a fire of charcoal till it was melted. Then she said, "Sir John, return and turn to clay, and fire of fever you waste away." And the next day news came to the castle that Sir John had died in a burning fever. So then Sir Simon went out of the castle and mounted his horse and rode away to the bishop and told him everything. And the bishop sent his men, and they took the Lady Evelyn, and everything she had done was found out. So the day after, the year and the day, when she was to have been married, they carried her through the town in her smock, and they tied her to a great stake in the marketplace, and burned her alive before the bishop, with her wax image hung round her neck. And people say the wax man screamed in the burning of the flames. Hey, it's Fred here, excited for all the fun activities here in the heart of summer, trips to the beach or lake, weddings, parties, dining al fresco, professional mixers, and so much more. It's the time of year where you want versatile, comfortable wardrobe pieces that keep up with your life, which is why I love Quince. Top of my list of go-tos from Quince, definitely their 100% European linen garments. Got a few versions of their button-up long and short-sleeve shirts, pants, and shorts. Also love their performance t-shirts, which look sharp and are breathable and cool. And it's not just clothes. They have great luggage and travel accessories to build out your kit for summer vacation plans, as well as a full complement of bed and bath products, including the most fluffy Turkish cotton terry robe you could ever imagine. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands, possible because they work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for exceptional quality, not brand markup. Make your summer wardrobe feel easier. Go to quince.com/undertow for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/undertow, under TOW, for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/undertow.
Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
With the all-new Dynasty Blueprint in EA Sports College Football 27, you can build your program by earning Dynasty points to spend on NIL, staff, and more. But the fun doesn't end at graduation. With the EA Sports MVP Bundle, get College Football 27, Madden NFL 27, plus Deluxe Edition rewards in both games. Make your rise with the MVP Bundle, available now at EA.com. Rated E for everyone with mild lyrics, easier to interact, and in-game purchases. Includes random items. Conditions and restrictions apply. See the link for more info.
And I thought of the story again and again as I was lying awake in my bed, and I seemed to see the Lady Evelyn in the marketplace with the yellow flames eating up her beautiful white body. And I thought of it so much that I seemed to get into the story myself, and I fancied I was the lady, and that they were coming to take me to be burnt with fire, with all the people in the town looking at me. And I wondered whether she cared, after all the strange things she had done, and whether it hurt very much to be burned at the stake. I tried again and again to forget Nurse's stories, and to remember the secret I had seen that afternoon, and what it was in the secret wood, but I could only see the dark, and a glimmering in the dark, and then it went away, and I only saw myself running, and that a great moon came up white over a dark round hill. Then all the old stories came back again, and the strange rhymes that Nurse used to sing to me, and there was one beginning, Halsey Cumsey Helen Musty, that she used to sing very softly when she wanted me to go to sleep, and I began to sing it to myself, inside of my head, and I went to sleep. The next morning, I was very tired and sleepy, and could hardly do my lessons, and I was very glad when they were over and I'd had my dinner, as I wanted to go out and be alone. It was a warm day, and I went to a nice turfy hill by the river, and sat down on my mother's old shawl that I had brought with me on purpose. The sky was gray like the day before, but there was kind of white gleam behind it, and from where I was sitting, I could look down on the town, and it was all still and quiet and white like a picture. I remembered that it was on that hill that Nurse taught me to play an old game called Troy Town, in which one had to dance and wind in and out of a pattern in the grass, and then when one had danced and turned long enough, the other person asks you questions, and you can't help answering whether you want to or not, and whatever you are told to do, you feel you have to do it. Nurse said there used to be lots of games like that some people knew of, and there was one by which people could be turned into anything you liked. And an old man, her great-grandmother had seen, had known a girl who had been turned into a large snake. And there was another very ancient game of dancing and winding and turning by which you could take a person out of himself and hide him away as long as you liked, and his body went walking about quite empty without any sense in it. But I came to that hill because I wanted to think of what had happened the day before, and of the secret of the wood. From the place where I was sitting, I could see beyond the town, into the opening I had found, where a little brook had led me into an unknown country. And I pretended I was following the brook all over again, and I went all the way in my mind, and at last I found the wood, and crept into it under the bushes, and then in the dusk I saw something that made me feel as if I were filled with fire, as if I wanted to dance and sing and fly up into the air, because I was changed and wonderful. But what I saw was not changed at all, and had not grown old, and I wondered again and again how such things could happen, and whether Nurse's stories were really true, because in the daytime, in the open air, everything seemed quite different from what it was at night, when I was frightened and thought I was to be burned alive. I once told my father one of her little tales, which was about a ghost, and asked him if it was true, and he told me it was not true at all, that only common ignorant people believed in such rubbish. He was very angry with Nurse for telling me the story and scolded her, and after that I promised I would never whisper a word of what she told me, and if I did I should be bitten by the great black snake that lived in the pool in the wood. And all alone, on the hill, I wondered what was true. I had seen something very amazing and very lovely, and I knew a story, and I had really seen it, and not made it up out of the dark, and the black bough, and the bright shining that was mounting up to the sky from over the great round hill, but had really seen it in truth. Then there were all kinds of wonderful and lovely and terrible things to think of. So I longed and trembled, and I burned and I got cold. And I looked down on the town, so quiet and still, like a little white picture, and I thought over and over if it could be true. I was a long time before I could make up my mind to anything. There was such a strange fluttering at my heart that seemed to whisper to me all the time that I had not made it up out of my head. Yet it seemed quite impossible. I knew my father and everybody would say it was dreadful rubbish. I never dreamed of telling him or anybody else a word about it because I knew it would be of no use and I should only get laughed at or scolded. So for a long time I was very quiet and went about thinking and wondering. And at night I used to dream of amazing things. And sometimes I woke up in the early morning and held out my arms with a cry. And I was frightened too because there were dangers and some awful thing would happen to me unless I took great care if the story were true. These old tales were always in my head, night and morning, and I went over them and told them to myself over and over again, and went for walks in the places where Nurse had told them to me. And when I sat in the nursery by the fire in the evenings, I used to fancy Nurse was sitting in the other chair and telling me some wonderful story in a low voice for fear anybody should be listening. But she used to like best to tell me about things when we were right out in the country, far from the house, because she said she was telling me such secrets, and walls have ears. And if it was something more than ever secret, we had to hide in breaks or woods, and I used to think it was such fun creeping along a hedge and going very softly, and then we would get behind the bushes or run into the wood all of a sudden when we were sure that none were watching us. So we knew that we had our secrets quite all to ourselves, and nobody else at all knew anything about them. Now and then, when we had hidden ourselves, as I have described, she used to show me all sorts of odd things. One day, I remember, we were in a hazel brake overlooking the brook, and we were so snug and warm as though it was April. The sun was quite hot, and the leaves were just coming out. Nurse said she would show me something funny that would make me laugh, and then she showed me, as she said, how one could turn a whole house upside down without anybody being able to find out, and the pots and pans would jump about, and the china would be broken, and the chairs would tumble over of themselves. I tried it one day in the kitchen, and I found I could do it quite well, and a whole row of plates on the dresser fell off it, and Cook's little work table tilted up and turned right over before her eyes, as she said. But she was so frightened and turned so white that I didn't do it again, as I liked her. And afterwards, in the hazel cosp, when she had shown me how to make things tumble about, Nurse showed me how to make rapping noises, and I learned how to do that too. Then she taught me rhymes to say on certain occasions, and peculiar marks to make on other occasions, and other things that her great-grandmother had taught her when she was a little girl herself. And these were all the things I was thinking about in those days after the strange walk when I thought I had seen a great secret, and I wished Nurse were there for me to ask her about it. But she had gone away more than 2 years before, and nobody seemed to know what had become of her or where she had gone. But I shall always remember those days if I live to be quite old, because all the time I felt so strange, wondering and doubting and feeling quite sure at one time and making up my mind. And then I would feel quite sure that such things couldn't happen, really, and it began all over again. But I took great care not to do certain things that might be very dangerous. So I waited and wondered for a long time, and though I was not sure at all, I never dared try to find out. But one day, I became sure that all that Nurse said was quite true, and I was all alone when I found it out. I trembled all over with joy and terror, and as fast as I could, I ran to one of the old breaks where we used to go. It was the one by the lane where Nurse made the little clay man, and I ran into it, and I crept into it, and when I came to the place where the elder tree was, I covered up my face with my hands and lay down flat on the grass, and I stayed there for 2 hours without moving, whispering to myself delicious, terrible things, and saying some words over and over again. And when I remembered the story I knew and thought of what I had really seen, I got hot and I got cold, and the air seemed full of scent and flowers and singing. And first I wanted to make a little clay man, like the one Nurse had made so long ago, and I had to invent plans and stratagems and to look about and to think of things beforehand, because nobody must dream of anything that I was doing or going to do, and I was too old to carry clay about in a tin bucket. At last, I thought of a plan, and I brought the wet clay to the break and did everything that Nurse had done, only I made a much finer image than the one she had made. And when it was finished, I did everything that I could imagine, and much more than she did, because it was the likeness of something far better. And a few days later, when I'd done my lessons early, I went for the second time by the way of the little brook that had led me into the strange country. And I followed the brook, and went through the bushes, and beneath the low branches of trees, and up the thorny thickets on the hill, and by dark woods full of creeping thorns, a long, long way. Then I crept through the dark tunnel where the brook had been, and the ground was stony, till at last I came to the thicket that climbed up the hill, and though the leaves were coming out upon the trees, everything looked almost as black as it was on the first day that I went there. And the thicket was just the same. And I went up slowly till I came on the big bare hill and began to walk among the wonderful rocks. I saw the terrible voor again on everything, for though the sky was brighter, the ring of wild hills all around was still dark, and the hanging woods looked dark and dreadful, and the strange rocks were as gray as ever. And when I looked down on them from the great mound, sitting on the stone, I saw all their amazing circles and rounds within rounds, and I had to sit quite still and watch them as they began to turn about me, and each stone danced in its place, and they seemed to go round and round in a great whirl, as if one were in the middle of all the stars and heard them rushing through the air. So I went down among the rocks to dance with them and to sing extraordinary songs. And I went down through the other thicket and drank from the bright stream in the close and secret valley, putting my lips down to the bubbling water. And then I went on till I came to the deep, brimming well among the glittering moss and sat down. I looked before me into the secret darkness of the valley, and behind me was the great high wall of grass, and all around me there were the hanging woods that made the valley such a secret place. I knew there was nobody here at all besides myself, and that no one could see me. So I took off my boots and stockings and let my feet down into the water, saying the words that I knew. And it was not cold at all, as I expected, but warm and very pleasant. And when my feet were in it, I felt as if they were in silk, or as if the nymphs were kissing them. So when I had done, I said the other words and made the signs, and then I dried my feet with a towel I had brought on purpose and put on my stockings and boots. Then I climbed up the steep wall and went into the place where there are hollows and the two beautiful mounds and the round ridges of land in all the strange shapes. I did not go down to the hollow this time, but I turned at the end and made out the figures quite plainly, as it was lighter, and I had remembered the story I had quite forgotten before. And in the story, the two figures are called Adam and Eve, and only those who know the story understand what they mean. So I went on until I came to a secret wood, which must not be described, and I crept into it by the way I had found. And when I had gone about halfway, I stopped and turned round and got ready, and I bound the handkerchief tightly round my eyes and made sure that I could not see at all, not a twig, nor the end of a leaf, nor the light of the sky, as it was an old red silk handkerchief with large yellow spots that went round twice and covered my eyes so that I could see nothing. Then I began to go on, step by step, very slowly. My heart beat faster and faster, and something rose in my throat that choked me and made me want to cry out, but I shut my lips and went on. Boughs caught in my hair as I went, and great thorns tore me, but I went on to the end of the path. Then I stopped and held up my arms and bowed, and I went round the first time, feeling with my hands, and there was nothing. And I went round the second time, feeling with my hands, and there was nothing. Then I went round the third time, feeling with my hands, and the story was all true. And I wished that the years were gone by, and that I had not so long a time to wait before I was happy forever and ever. Nurse must have been a prophet like those we read of in the Bible. Everything that she said began to come true, and since then other things that she told me of have happened. That was how I came to know that her stories were true, that I had not made up the secret myself out of my own head. But there was another thing that happened that day. I went a second time to that secret place. I was at the deep brimming well, and when I was standing on the moss, I bent over and looked in, and then I knew who the white lady was that I had seen come out of the water in the wood long ago when I was quite little. And I trembled all over, because that told me other things. Then I remembered how sometime after I had seen the white people in the wood, Nurse asked me more about them, and I told her all over again, and she listened and said nothing for a long, long time, and at last she said, "You will see her again." So I understood what had happened and what was to happen, and I understood about the nymphs, how I might meet them in all kinds of places, and that they would always help me, and I must always look for them, and find them in all sorts of strange shapes and appearances. And without the nymphs, I could never have found the secret. And without them, none of the other things could happen. Nurse had told me all about them long ago, but she called them by another name, and I did not know what she meant or what her tales of them were about, only that they were very strange. And there were two kinds, the bright and the dark, and both were very lovely and very wonderful, and some people saw only one kind, and some only the other, but some saw them both. But usually the dark appeared first, and the bright ones came afterwards, and there were extraordinary tales about them. It was a day or two after I had come home from the secret place that I first really knew the nymphs. Nurse had shown me how to call them, and I had tried, but I did not know what she meant, and so I thought it was all nonsense. But I made up my mind I would try again, so I went to the wood where the pool was, where I saw the white people, and I tried again. The dark nymph, Alana, came, and she turned the pool of water into a pool of fire. And that was The Green Book Part 2, ending on a bit of an abrupt cliffhanger there. As a reminder, the original text was followed by an epilogue, which I have chosen to excise. In the original epilogue, we return to the two men who frame and contain the narrative. There's the academic on evil, Ambrose, and the curious Cotgrave of Victorian England, both of them. Cotgrave has read the Green Book and doesn't quite know what to make of it. So the epilogue bookends the conversation about good and evil that's found in the prologue. Ambrose reveals that the young woman who wrote the Green Book, the primary text, has died, and Ambrose actually found her after her disappearance because he was friends with her father. He found her lying before a strange pagan altar built during the Roman occupation of Britain. So Ambrose, the upstanding citizen, wishing to protect other innocents from similar fates, smashes the altar into pieces. And it's all sort of positioned as somewhat sad, as if this was an innocent girl who didn't know what she was getting herself into, but was destroyed by these evil forces all the same. And perhaps that is so, but also perhaps the strange rituals and experiences described within were characterized as evil by those who did not appreciate that there was a young woman more attracted to dancing in the forests than to the idea of getting married. So, in the interests of letting the account from the Green Book stand for itself, you've now experienced the story. You can make your own assessment on the nature of sin and whether it's against God to find yourself called to drumming in the forest and the wildness within. And if you do wish to see the original prologue and epilogue, just look for The White People by Arthur Machen, Machen. It's a public domain story, so it's out there. This has been a Dagaz Media production of The Green Book, performed and sound designed by Fred Greenhalgh, with music from Blue Dot Sessions. Undertow is a production of Realm, with executive producers Fred Greenhalgh and Molly Barton. Undertow's theme is by Marcus Bagala. Thanks for listening, and stay spooky.
Evening. Buyer's remorse. Buy a new car? I'll be moving in. Let's get started.
Sorry, I think there's been a mistake. I bought it from Carvana.
You what?
Yeah, great price. I even have 7 days to love it or return it.
So there's no...
No buyer's remorse. More like buyer's rejoice.
I guess I'll let myself out. Congratulations. I mean it.
Buyer's rejoice. Buy your car today on Carvana.
Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
The war is over, and both sides lost. Kingdoms were reduced to cinders, and armies scattered like bones in the dust. Now the survivors claw to what's left of a broken world, praying the darkness chooses someone else tonight. But in the Shadow Dark, the darkness always wins. This is old school adventuring at its most cruel. Your torch ticks down in real time, and when that flame dies, something else rises to finish the job. This is a brutal rules-light nightmare with a story that emerges organically based on the decisions that the characters make. This is what it felt like to play RPGs in the 80s, and man, it is so good to be back. Join the Glass Cannon podcast as we plunge into the Shadow Dark every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on youtube.com/theglasscannon, with the podcast version dropping the next day. See what everybody's talking about and join us in the dark.